I've played through the Stellar Blade demo twice now, challenge boss included, and I left the experience feeling that it gives me heavy Sekiro vibes, along with some inspirations from Nier Automata and Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry because of the traversal and the skill trees, Nier Automata because of the music, the environments, and not to mention the beautiful protagonist. And of course, Sekiro because of the focus on parry and rhythm timing. I want to start this conversation by saying that I never felt inclined to play this demo like a Souls game. And trust me, if I had felt it was a Souls-like, I'd have played it that way. I am one of the most stubborn when it comes to that. I will try and play a game like a Souls-like if I think it's inspired that way. But I really had no desire to play this demo that way, not even once. My time with Stellar Blade had me super aggressive and then stopping what I'm doing to parry when I had to. And that's the best way I could describe my experience with the combat. And after coming to that conclusion, I later saw others saying that Stellar Blade looks just like a quote-unquote another boring Souls-like, mainly because of this specific gameplay being passed around. I later found out that this gameplay comes from Kofi, shout out to him, and yes, he was playing it very slow and methodical in this clip. And this is likely due to him not being familiar with all of the gameplay mechanics and basically forcing it to play like a slowed down version of Sekiro. Not to mention that both of us, as well as everyone else at this point of the demo, had limited abilities with the skill tree that we have very limited access to. As with any action game, the gameplay gets more flashy as we upgrade our skills, but for whatever reason, that logic is being lost on some gamers out there. We're gonna get to the combat later, but when I asked people on Twitter why they feel Stellar Blade is a Souls-like, a lot of them referenced bonfires. They feel how we save the game by having Eve sit down to regain her health as well as respawning the enemies is reminiscent to a Souls-like bonfire. And yes, the enemies do respawn when we sit down at a campsite, but we also buy items here, we put points into our skill tree here, and we can play music. Ah yes, I'm waiting for a waifu to come out of nowhere and say touch the demon inside me any minute now. Not to mention, we aren't cashing any souls in to level up stats here, but I digress. Instead of continuing to disprove the obvious here, I wanted to give focus on what many are not noticing, and that is the rest of the game. I want to show you the gameplay outside of the combat first, just to give you an idea of what this game even is. For instance, we have a couple of tropes that you'll typically see in action-adventure games. Here, for example, we see a ladder we cannot get to, and our companion Adam tells us that we can use this plank to get across. This alone makes this article here by Digital Trends even funnier, because when writing about why they felt Stellar Blade is a Souls-like, one of the reasons they mention is because it doesn't hold your hand. I want to know what demo they played, because this demo absolutely holds your hand. It told me about the plank in the water, it told me where to go, and even stopped me from leaving the first save point without unlocking a skill. You can literally scan for enemies in the game as well. Not to mention, there are yellow paint lines letting you know where to climb. I want to know what Souls-like game out there is doing this. When did Horizon Forbidden Souls come out? That's what I want to know. So you could imagine as I'm playing this demo, Souls-like was not coming to my mind at all. Now let's talk about the combat, because that's the aspect of the game that people are naturally focusing on. Again, like I said, there are many moves that will be unlocked in the skill tree that are sure to make this combat more flashy, but even as it is in the demo, there are moves that can easily be overlooked and make us feel like it's slow combat. For example, when I first started playing the demo, I felt that closing the gaps between me and the enemies felt slow and sluggish, and like something was kind of off about it. I would lock on and then feel like there's this hard distance that was placed between us, and it was kind of slow for me to get closer to them. But as I kept playing, I realized if I just hold down triangle, I will rush at the enemy to close the gap. This becomes one part of the rhythm dance. I rush in, I hit the enemy, and then I watch for all the visual cues on what to do next, which ultimately improvises my skill patterns. If it's a red cue, I know that I have to parry. If it's a yellow cue, I dodge. And if it's a blue cue, then I have to dodge at the right time to get behind the enemy and attack. And that's really when I could ever get behind the enemy. I never thought to wrap around this boss here and get behind it like a Souls boss. I just stayed in front and waited for the cues, much like a Sekiro kind of experience. Ultimately, I think the confusion on people thinking this is a Souls-like game comes from two possible reasons. One is that a lot of folks are making the mistake us Souls-like enthusiasts made over 5 years ago, and are basically attributing Souls-like comparisons where they don't need to be. I recently made a video about Hollow Knight being the biggest Souls-like imposter, because at the time of its release, many of us, and myself included, were mistakenly giving it the Souls-like tag, and I feel now it was because there weren't many Souls games there to compare to, especially really good ones. Now that we're in 2024, we know better. We know that Hollow Knight is not really a Souls game, and now we know that Stellar Blade isn't either. The ones that think it is likely haven't played as many Souls-like games as the rest of us, and are just kind of blindly throwing the Souls tag at anything that reminds them of the 1 or 2 Souls games that they played. Another reason, and I think this is the biggest one, is that when we see that Stellar Blade is influenced by Sekiro, some will run with that and say, oh, well then it's a Souls-like, because they believe Sekiro is a Souls-like, when in all actuality, it's not. Yes, Sekiro is made by From Software. Yes, we can see the reused animations and similar vibes because it is the same developer that created Dark Souls, but Sekiro's DNA is not Souls. It's an action game that heavily focuses on parry and countering, and also rhythm timing for inputting our moves, and here we are again with Stellar Blade doing similar. So I think that's where the discrepancies and the confusion comes from, and why guys like Fightin' Cowboy, and even myself for that matter, are saying that this is a Sekiro-like along with the other inspirations, and not even mentioning Souls. Visual cues are just very important in Sekiro. They let you know when is the right time to counter these enemies. Sekiro is often defined as a rhythm game because the visual and audio cues are constantly letting you know what button to press and at what time. And then those who disagree come in asking if Fightin' Cowboy has even played Souls games? Yeah, that's right. This guy is implying Fightin' Cowboy should play more Souls games. That's gotta be one of the most wild responses I've seen online. But anyways, let's not forget the most damning evidence to this argument, and that is that Stellar Blade has difficulty options. I mean, how much more do we need here? We could go on and on, but for now, I want to know, where do you guys fall on all of this? Do you agree with me that this is more in the vein of Sekiro and not Souls? Or are you here to say, no, Erica, F you, this is a Souls-like, and here's why? Definitely let me know in the comment section. I think it's a very interesting conversation to have, and we might end up agreeing on something at the end of the day. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.